Hello everyone and welcome to Position Specific and welcome back to our coaching journey 2 with an under-15s development phase team in the USA. Apologies for the couple of weeks break. I've been away on holiday and I actually forgot to mention it at the end of week number 5, so apologies for that. I'm glad some of you got in touch with us who were missing it. We'll back for now until the end of this project. But here's what we've got in store for you today. So moving into week 6, we've got a look at session 4 that we did with the boys. We've got a look at session 5 that we did, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a second. And then we've got a game plan for our first game back since the start of February against Utah Avalanche. And I'll explain a little bit about that team that we're playing, and then I'll explain a little bit about our game plan going into that game as well. But it's good to have the games back and good to get the boys playing after their high school seasons with the various high schools. So let's get into it. Okay, so week number 6, as I mentioned before, we've got 2 sessions to show you and then obviously a game plan. So session number 4 was an out of possession session, so it was all about defensive organisation and high pressing, and I'll go into that in detail in a second. But we've got a technical practice to go through and then obviously a game practice to go through, and there was a little bit of a funny period of arranging that particular session, but I'll get into that in a second as well. Session number 5 was an in-possession session, and it was all about attacking organisation and playing into the opposition's penalty area. So we're going to look at a through technical practice, a through skill practice, and a through game practice. And when we get into that, I'll remind you of how we look at playing into the opposition's penalty area as well in terms of the game model. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we've got a game plan to show you as we've got our first game coming up since the high school season with the boys. So it'll be good to have a quick look at the game plan and give you a little bit of background on the team that we're playing. But the game plan will mainly revolve around in and out of possession, so some moments in attacking organisation and defensive organisation, and then obviously the transitions will always stay the same, but I'll explain that when we get to it. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have a look at session 4, which was a defensive organisation session involving a high press. And just before I get into this was a bit of a random session, and I've explained before how we've been adapting to various different things that go on, especially when you're coaching a grassroots team, and all obviously the different commitments they have with other sports, family commitments, etc., etc. And I'm sure you guys are into exactly the same stuff as well. But this session was supposed to happen on Monday night at our usual time, with our usual allotted time slot of 90 minutes. But unfortunately, we had a lot of the boys who were going away on various kind of camps and stuff here around where we live, so we had to cancel that session on the Monday night because I think we only had about 4 or 5 boys being able to make it. So we decided late on Sunday night that we would do it early on on Monday morning because the players are off school at the moment for the summer holidays. So we decided to do it really early so we could get 14 of the boys there, but it meant that we only had an hour for the session. And obviously it was a little bit of last minute planning, so you'll see kind of when we get to what the session looked like and how we did it, etc., why it looked a little bit like that, but I'll go into that in more detail in a little bit. Okay, so just getting into the defensive organisation kind of stuff around our game model and the 3Ds we use in terms of deny, deflect and defend. This is the first session that I'm going to show you in terms of a defensive organisation session, in terms of high pressing. I don't know if you remember before, like a couple of weeks ago we did one around team compactness, whether that's horizontal or vertical, and that was all about kind of being compact when we're about to press, or when the press inevitably gets beat, or when we have to defend a little bit lower. So this is all about the high pressing within our game model and how we kind of try to be as much as possible, which is front foot high pressing team, and trying to win the ball back as high up the pitch as possible. So what we're going to focus on here is obviously, like I mentioned, the deny, deflect and defend, but obviously high pressing is winning the ball back in the attacking half of the pitch, and we want to do that as much as possible, and as you can see the target there, and I'll get into the target in a second, it's all about 80% of the time of trying to get or win the ball back in that attacking half of the pitch, so we can go to goal, or we can maintain possession, and obviously build attacks from there. Obviously, inevitably, I say this all the time, there's going to be some point in the game where your high press gets beaten. That is something that is definitely going to happen. It's not if, it's just when, and if you're prepared for that. And we always drop into a little bit of a lower kind of press where we're looking to win the ball back in our own defensive half, or even in and around the halfway line if we can. But again, it's still the same emphasis of pressing. So it's not kind of a drop deep and just be passive. We want to make sure we drop a little bit deeper, but we're still aggressive in the press and we're still like trying to win the ball back. And that usually happens when the opposition have broken our first line of that press. But obviously within the high press we talk about trying not to let that happen, and that's kind of how we operate within the high press as well. So, but let's get into a little bit of the more focused detail around defensive organisation and this high press. So our mentality is to deny the opposition space to play through our defensive and attacking lines, which makes us compact vertically. To achieve this, we'll close up our defensive line and close back our attacking line, and we limit the space to a maximum of 40 metres, which I've talked about in a previous coaching journey week a few weeks ago. Our focus is to close in to become compact horizontally as well, to force the opposition wide, allowing us to press more aggressively within a maximum of 44 metres. And our objective is to either force the opposition to a mistake or win the ball back cleanly in a controlled state, and then obviously you start moving into your attacking transition phase from that as well. But like I mentioned before, our target is 80% of the time can we win or force a mistake when we are high pressing in the opposition's half. So just to go along with that as well, obviously I've mentioned deny, deflect and defend a couple of times already. So what does that exactly mean? So deny is closing the space vertically to deny the opposition playing through. That one's really important in terms of the high press. We're always looking to force the opposition wide as much as possible. We don't want them playing through or breaking our lines at any point. We want to make sure we're playing, making sure they're playing around. And then obviously we can also use a touchline as an extra defender as well. I think that's important for coaches to understand that, you know, you're always wanting to force the opposition out wide, so effectively they've got nowhere to go, and kind of close the space and try and force them either into making that mistake of kicking the ball out and giving you a throw in or etc., or just using that touchline as kind of a no place to go. Obviously deflect, same as just mentioned before, so close the space horizontally to deflect the opposition around, horizontal compactness of 44 metres, like I said before, using that touchline as an extra defender. And then obviously defending is the last part, where we look to force the opposition into a mistake or win the ball as cleanly as possible, which allows us then to go on the attack and get into our attacking transition, and then obviously into our attacking organisation phase as well. So that's effectively how we look to do it in terms of defensive organisation and high press. And then when we look at high pressing, especially when we're playing against a back four, can be slightly different when you're playing against a back three, which if my predictions are right, one of the games that we'll play in the next couple of weeks of the coaching journey will be against a back three. So I'll explain a little bit more when we get into the game plan against them about how we're going to operate and press against a back three. But this is effectively how we press against a back four. So we've got 4 different types of presses, which I'll go through individually in a second, but just to give you a clear picture. So the first press is just pressing with one centre forward on their own. And most of the time, or a lot of the time, when we play against teams here, we have quite a bit of success with this. And a lot of the times we don't usually have to change. And the teams that we're playing against in these 3 friendlies that we've got before we go to Hawaii, we will have to use a couple of the different presses against those teams, just because of their level and what they try to do. But a lot of the time, pressing with one centre forward, we're quite efficient at, and we use quite well. Pressing number 2 is pressing with a centre forward and a wide forward, which is and that can be either side. So that can be like with your centre forward or your right wide forward, or it could be a centre forward and your left wide forward. That obviously depends a little bit on the quality of the opposition centre backs, and kind of which one is the better centre back and which one you might want to set up on first and then allow the ball to go to the other one so you can press them. Pressing number 3 is pressing with a centre forward and a midfield player. So again, depending on the opposition's quality of the centre backs, again, which one you set up on. But this is pressing from a central area. So obviously this is one of your midfielders stepping forward and looking to press one of the centre backs. And then finally, press 4 is a full press from either central areas or wide areas. And effectively what this means is from presses 2 and 3 is a full press basically means you go full man to man. So that can be from the centre of the pitch, where it could be an attacking midfielder stepping on, and then your one of your lower midfielders, whether it be a 6 or an 8, stepping on, and then obviously your centre back stepping in. And then if you do it in a wide area, this is effectively your wide forward going onto a centre back, and then your full back jumping onto the opposition's full back as well. So effectively, when we're talking about full press, that means we're going to release someone off our defensive line of 4 players. and go and really put the pressure on the opposition, which we will do in one of these in these 3 games that we're talking about, leading up to the regionals in Hawaii. So just to go into a little bit more detail about the presses. So this is high press number 1. So this is with 1 forward and pressing just with your centre forward. And like I mentioned to you before, we're quite successful with this, but we like to get the boys into a little bit of detail around it as well. So horizontal and vertical compactness to start with, making sure that we are inside the pitch and our defensive line is close to our attacking line. Obviously, when you want your number 9 to divide the 2 centre-backs, as soon as the ball moves, then obviously you want to try and press and lock the centre-back to one side. So effectively that means you can't switch the play, and we're going to force the ball wide as possible into a little bit of a net there where we can get numbers. Effectively, you can see there where it's 5v5 and we can try and win the ball back. So we just don't want the opposition switching play from this opportunity, and we'll leave players on the other side of the pitch free, knowing that that's a really hard pass. So then obviously when we win it, we'll move up with the ball, close the defensive lines up, and then obviously, as you can see there, we're looking to pass into any of those 3 players and either maintain possession and get into our attacking shape where we can probe and we can try and play our way in, or if we can go straight away, even better. And try and you'll see a little bit of this when I talk about the sessions, and you'll see a couple of performance problems we had in the sessions around attacking transition, but which sometimes your press can be perfect and you can win the ball back, and then obviously the attacking transition bit can let you down. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Moving into press 2. So press 2 is with 2 forwards. So this is pressing with a centre forward and a wide forward. And this is a little bit kind of going against the grain of what I spoke about forcing wide, but we eventually do force wide. But in this particular one, again, exact same setup in terms of horizontal and vertical compactness, being really tight and just leaving the wide areas. As you can see there, the 7-11 a little bit wider. So what you're going to do here is, depending which one you use to press, but you're going to force them inside to start with. So getting your 7-11 just to curve that run a little bit, just stopping the pass going on the outside, and you just want them to pass it into the midfield, so then the midfield can link it out to that wide player, and then obviously you look to press and create that net again when the ball goes to that wide player. And you can do this by, as you can see here, so our defensive midfielder there is the one that goes and follows the ball to press. Our 7 recovers on the inside, our 8 comes across, and then our 9, as you can see there, comes on to the centre-back, which was pressed initially. And again, you're creating that net and trying to win the ball in the wide area off the number 3 or the left-back. And then when you win it, obviously, you can close your lines up again and obviously try and go and score. But again, it's another one of like forcing the first pass on the inside and then pressing on that one that goes on the outside. And again, you'll leave players on the opposite side of the pitch, but knowing that that's a really difficult pass, we usually are okay with doing that as well. Okay, press number 3. So this is a high press with 2 forwards. All right, so this time you're pressing with the centre forward and the one of your attacking midfield players. And usually when you play against a team who plays a good 4-3-3, you'll have 1 defensive midfielder and then 2 attacking midfielders. It doesn't really matter if they have 2 deeper and 1 higher. It's still exactly the same thing. It's still exactly the same principles again as well. So again, vertical, horizontal compactness. Number 9 decides obviously which side he's going to go and organise and set up on, and then that leaves our attacking midfielder ready to press the opposite centre half. Now, if I just freeze it there, as you can see, our number 10 again now is just forcing outside, so he's forcing the ball into that left back again. Our number 8 has jumped in midfield onto their defensive midfield player, and we've left a midfield player free. And again, knowing that that's a really difficult pass from the angle that our central attacking midfielder is pressing from, knowing that that's a really difficult pass, even for a left-footed centre-back, to clip it into that number 8 who's free in midfield there, or even to switch the play, that's a really tough pass. So we know that we can leave those players free, and we can still force the opposition into passing into that area where we wanna press. So from there again as well, okay, making sure our number 7 is screening and not allowing a pass to go through our press or into the opposition's wide forward or attacking midfielder, and then again creating that net again where we can create a 5v5 on that side of the pitch. And again, as soon as we win it, can we transition into attacking and find one of our players and get ourselves on the way to scoring a goal. Okay, so that's press number 3. And finally, press number 4, which is a full press from central and wide areas. And as you'll see here, they're very, very similar to what we did in presses 2 and 3, except this time we're going to release someone off our defensive line. and really go for it. And you kind of save these kind of presses for the really top teams who have got multiple ways of playing out against you. And I can think back to academy days back in the UK when you play against a Chelsea or a Man City, then these are the types of presses that you need, because they'll find different ways, multiple ways of trying to play out against you. And this is where you just go full man to man and ultimately try and force them into a little bit of a longer pass, and then obviously still trying to get first contact and second contact from there. But you'll see that in a bit of the detail we'll go into here. So the first one we're going to look at is obviously pressing from a wide area, and as you can see here, so our number 7 has gone on to press one of the centre backs. Our number 2 has jumped on to the opposition's fullback, forcing them into a long ball, and then obviously getting around that long ball and winning that as much as possible. Second one, okay, so this same thing from central areas. So again, our central midfielder steps on and obviously presses the centre back, and then obviously one of our centre backs steps into midfield to pick up the spare midfielder that I spoke about before, who would be free. Again, because when you're playing against top teams, sometimes they can pick that pass out, and again forcing them into that longer pass where you can create the net and get obviously equal numbers, and then obviously be aggressive in this part as well, where you're winning first and second contact, so you can set you up on the attack and go from there. But 4 different types of presses, and I know what you're thinking, like that's a lot of information for players that you're giving out there and stuff, but again, it's really important to be adaptable to lots of different teams that you're playing against. So for example, a lot of the time we have loads of success with press number 1. We don't even have to bother with any of the other ones. We'll win the ball back multiple times and force teams into playing longer passes, and obviously trying to win that as well. But sometimes when you get to good levels of competition, when you get to playing against top teams, then you need to have different ideas of presses in your locker to be able to do. And I give the example of the particular team that I'm working with. We've spent a lot of time building out against lots of different playing out against lots of different presses. So we'd be comfortable trying navigating our way around a lot of these 4 presses. So that's why it's important that when you come up against a team like that, you're prepared and you've got other options to go to. I can think of a game again back in the academy days back in the UK where we played against Liverpool, and we started pressing, and usually in most games we'll start pressing with the number 9 on their own anyway to see what the opposition do, but we were pressing with our number 9 on their own, and they were really good at either linking it through midfield and back out the other side through the goalkeeper and the other centre back, or switching it straight away. Slight performance problem with the way our number 9 was pressing, but again, like he started to get a little bit disillusioned with it as well, so we just gave him a little bit of help and we decided to go for a full press from central and wide areas, and that really created the difference in terms of us pressing and winning the ball back and causing real problems for that team. So it's always important you have lots of different ideas in your locker. Okay, so let's have a look at the practice number 1 in this defensive organisation high press session number 4. So as I mentioned before, we only had an hour for this particular session because of the short notice of rearranging it, etc. So what we did is on the rival, we got the boys into some 3v3s, 2v2s, etc. just so they could play little games to get warmed up with. Spent about 15 minutes on that. We do that a lot. So either at the start of sessions or at the end of sessions, we'll have little games like that, just so the boys get plenty of touches and have a little bit of fun, either at the start or the end, so then we can obviously get into the tactical stuff and other stuff that we need to get into. And I just wanted to make that clear, because obviously I don't show you those bits within the coaching journey. Majority of the bits of what I show you is all around the detail of how we play and how we develop the boys individually. So I just wanted to make that clear that we do have lots of games for the boys as well. But after that, we just moved into this really straightforward technical practice. We set up some mannequins on one half of the pitch, and the idea was that we were just going to, as you can see in the diagram there, we're just going to set up as a team of 10 players in our formation, and we were just going to walk through each press. And what happened was we'd walk through each press. I'd give the boys the details about when the ball goes there. This is the kind of the detail about how you press. When it goes to here, this is kind of how we shift across and we fill all the gaps, etc. And then the boys would jog through it a couple of times on each side themselves. We'd come back and then we'd go again. And I showed each press on the tactics board. We'd walk through it, jog through it, and then come back to the tactics board and go for the next press as well. So really straightforward, literally nothing to it. And sometimes it's good to do it like that, just to get the boys into the detail of kind of what you want from each press and how you kind of We want to make sure that how we're pressing, like you can see here, as it moving, and then how we're shifting across the pitch, and obviously touching on the 10 players all together effectively as well. So, I mean, pressing, when you're doing pressing sessions, are you working on high pressing? I prefer to do 11v11 high pressing because you can go through all 4 presses. You can really get into the detail about it. It creates all the performance problems that you'd expect and you want your players to kind of go through and understand. But obviously when you haven't got 22 players all the time, it's difficult to do that. So you're always finding different ways, as I'm sure you guys are used to, you're always finding different ways to do this and to work on this and get the detail into the players. So we used half a pitch. We use mannequins in terms of like how to walk through and jog through. We had 14 players available, so we had, in this first part you'll see players doubling up in positions, which is kind of normal as well. So obviously because you only need 10 players, but we had 14, so we were doubling up in positions apart from our goalkeeper. And we worked through this in 15 minutes, so we spent about 3 or 4 minutes on each press. And got through it as quick as possible, and then obviously moved on to the game part of this as well, which I'll explain again. We only went through a couple of presses in the game part because of the numbers, but I'll explain that when we get to it. So this is what it looks like in terms of the players doing it for real. And like I said, I'll just show you each press of how we walked through it and kind of how we did it as well. So high press was with one centre forward. So as you can see here, so our centre forward's moving on to that left centre back. Everybody's shifting across, and then when the ball goes wide as well, we'll just shift across the pitch. And as you can see, I'm just there making sure that we're closing gaps or we're not getting too far across. As you can see here from our wide forwards and our left backs, that left back's just behind me there, so he's probably a little bit too far across. But this is good, like when you're filming your training practices, that you see this stuff that you might actually miss within the moment. So it's good to have film your practices and have a look at that as well. But again, you'll see here fullback, because you're always wanting to look at the opposition's 6-yard box, and if your fullback's past that, then he's probably gone a little bit too far. So press 2. So this time is with our centre forward and our number 10. Or our attacking midfielder, and as you can see here, so I'm just talking to him here about starting a little bit higher than actually where his mark is, so then obviously he's in a position to go and press, and again he's going to force wide. What you'll see here as well is you'll see our one of our defensive midfielders on the left hand side there is going to jump onto whoever he leaves, and then we're going to leave that particular midfielder free, as you can see there now, because we know it's a really difficult pass, and then obviously we're looking to force wide and we'll shift across the pitch again. Again, left back's probably a little bit too far across. But as you can see that, and then I'll just go around and make sure that we are obviously just filling the gaps and filling the spaces as well. Because as you know, obviously when you're kind of doing this against mannequins, you know that players are going to move within the game as well. So just doing it on the left hand side as well, making sure everyone's switched on, moving across again, and making sure that we're compact horizontally and vertically. Okay, and moving on to press 4, and this is funny actually, because and obviously coaches make mistakes all the time. I'll just pause it there. We actually missed out press 3 completely because I completely forgot. So that happens. It happens every now and again. I'm sure you guys are used to that type of stuff as well. So it was a little bit of a pressure situation in this session with the hour and last minute rearrange. So we completely forgot to touch on press number 3. Which is okay, because the game that we had coming up, we weren't going to use that anyway in terms of the game plan. But I'll get to that a little bit later on. So this is press number 4. So as you can see here now, so this is like from this particular one's from a wide area. So I'm just telling our fullback now to jump on. Again, I know the VO is not ideal, so you can't see the full picture here, but I'm just organising our fullback to jump on and making sure everyone's moving across. And then I'm even talking to so you know when we're creating that net, so you can even get the wide forward who's pressed originally to back press then and help the fullback out, and then you get your number 9 to come onto the original centre back that was pressed as well, and just obviously create that net and create those numbers on that one side of the pitch. Just organise it on the other side. So again, getting your wide forwards to start a little bit higher, getting your fullback to start a little bit higher than where his actual mark is, just so he's in a good position to jump. And obviously, because sometimes when you get your wide forwards to start in this position, the goalkeeper, if he's got a little bit of ability, the goalkeeper, he'll clip it in straight into the fullback. in terms of, obviously, because that's the free player. So obviously you want it to go to centre back and then to full back, but sometimes they'll clip it straight away. So just making sure your full back's ready to go and press that one as well, because that's a real good one to press in terms of the longer pass from the goalkeeper into the full back, because while it's in the air you can get there and you can be aggressive. Again, organising that back pressure from the wide forwards, getting your centre forward to come across onto the original centre back that got pressed, and obviously creating that net again. One thing I didn't mention before about the net as well is, like, obviously pressing is really difficult. Pressing, you're always pressing against, obviously the opposition have more numbers in these areas of the pitches. That's why you're a little bit, you're either trying to get it into the net where on one side of the pitch where you're pressing equal numbers, or obviously when you go to full press, like we are now, then obviously you are releasing someone off your defensive line to go man for man, and kind of take away that kind of +1, +2. Goalkeeper's still always going to be free, but it's just a good way of thinking about it, and obviously talking to your players about that as well is really important, and telling them how hard pressing is because you're outnumbered. But obviously on the flip side of that is like that this is why you release people, to make sure that you can go and get kind of numbers, even numbers at least. But this time, so press for full press from central areas. So again, this time when our centre forward's gone, as you can see here, our centre back has just stepped into midfield onto the player that we've left from our midfielder, jumping onto their defensive midfield player, and again obviously filling those gaps and moving across the pitch. And obviously we do this as again to go man to man, so it's really important that you talk to, and I'll just show you, I'll pause it here when we go on the other side in a second as well. And again, just talking about moving and making sure that you're in a position to press already. So as we move here now, I'll just pause it there. So as you can see, our centre-back stepped into onto the opposition's midfielder that we've left, because our midfielders have jumped onto their defensive midfielder. But again, as you can see here, we're closing the gaps as a back three, and that's really important because, like, as soon as your centre-back steps out, you want your full-back on that side to close the gap between the other centre-back as well. And then you're in a good position to defend any kind of long balls as well, if that's what the opposition end up doing. But again, just creating that opportunity to move wide, and then obviously creating that net, and everybody comes across and just fills the gaps again. And I'm just mentioning here about filling the gaps, as our two midfielders who were the original ones who've jumped on haven't quite filled that gap. So just talking to them about coming and closing the gap of that net again. So effectively, that's how we went through 3 out of the 4 presses, because we forgot one. But that's how effectively we moved through the kind of presses in terms of just walking through, talking about on the tactics board, walking through them, jogging through them, and just getting in lots of the detail, as much of the detail as you can, to the players around how to operate in these presses. So from there, we moved into practice number 2, and practice number 2 was just focused around presses 1 and 2. Just because of the numbers that we had. Like I said before, as soon as you start releasing players off your defensive line, and obviously you need to do that in 11v11s, because with the numbers that we had, it was really important to create have everyone in the right position, and then obviously have your back 4 there as well. So we decided to do a 6 versus 8. So obviously the team that we were pressing would have 8 players instead of a goalkeeper, 2 centre backs, 2 full-backs, a defensive midfielder and 2 attacking midfielders. Our 6 would be a full midfielder, so 2 defensive midfield players effectively when the opposition's doing this kind of shape, an attacking midfielder, 2 wide forwards, and a number 9. So because of the numbers we had of 14, we just played this little game practice and worked on presses 1 and 2. So the Reds, who can start the game off, and you can start from different kind of starting positions, but majority of the time we started with where the goalkeeper and a goal kick, just to get the detail right. And as you can see here, so the Reds are looking to play into any of the 4 goals on the halfway line. The Whites just looking to press and win it, and then obviously see if they can create goal scoring opportunities. And what I usually do when we have more time to do this, what I'd usually do is I would roll through a few different starting positions as well, whether that can be the goalkeeper starting with it, whether that's the where you start from a throw-in or a free kick, or whether you actually start with the Whites in possession, trying to attack on goal, and then going for getting into a press from that kind of those transition moments as well, which we actually ended up getting anyway because we're just playing a little game, so we ended up getting all the moments anyway, but I'll show you that when we go into the video. So in terms of organisation, we used half a pitch, so we used obviously a full half of the pitch. We had 14 players, so like I said, we played a 6 versus 8 in terms of the pressing team. We had about 15-20 minutes for this, so we just worked on presses 1 and 2 because of the numbers we had and not having a defensive line, obviously to work on the other ones where you can step in and release people off it. And it took about 15 to 20 minutes. But let's have a look at the players doing this live. Should be a little bit better with the VO now as well. When there's only one ball, it's good with the VO because you can let it move normally. So high press once, so this is good practice. So as you can see here, our number 9 is doing a really good job forcing it into that wide player. As you can see there, I'll just pause it there as well. Our wide forward did a really good job of screening and not letting him play any passes into the midfield areas as well, and making sure he played it wide. Really important that your 7 or 11 do that, because if you've got a lefty as a left centre back, then sometimes if they're a good player, they can kind of do a little bit of disguise where it looks like they're playing into fullback and then they reverse it into midfield. So it's really important your wide forwards are switched on in this particular moment, so that they're screening, but they're also ready to sprint and go when it goes to the fullback. But does a really good job here of winning it back. And then obviously looking to create a good pass as well in terms of attacking transition. So as you can see here, so we just completed our 3 passes in terms of attacking transition. Now we're looking to get into our attacking shape and be able to play. And as you can see here, we end up creating a bit of an opportunity in terms of a shot on goal, which is good. But again, like really good little practice there in terms of getting to that point with where we're winning the ball back and getting a shot on goal as well, which is really good. A little bit of a transition moment here as well, where we can react, obviously, and you get those in the games anyway. But again, good opportunity to show you where it's like we've reacted really well and ended up winning the ball back in the transition as well, which you can see just about here now. And again, looking to get that attacking transition again. Great forward pass. And obviously, not quite committed to it on the second one, but again, just had everything in that. So a good pressing to start with, good attacking transition, kept the ball for 3 passes, allowed us to get into our attacking organisation shape to work the ball, and then we got a chance to shoot on goal. Didn't quite work out. Had a bit of a defensive transition. Managed to just about win the ball back in those 3 passes, and then obviously you talk about your attacking transition from that second part where we made a great first pass and then obviously a little bit sloppy on the second one. But a lot of the time, like I mentioned before, we're quite efficient in high press number 1. We use it a lot because a lot of the teams that we play against here don't offer a great deal in terms of playing out, so high press number 1 is quite successful for us. So we tend to focus on a lot of the other little performance problems that you can get, which is one of them here now. So as you can see here now, so it's actually a decent little press in terms of again, look at the 7 who's really forcing it, manages to go and press it as well. But this is a performance problem now here where we lose the ball just there, look now, okay, sloppy pass. In terms of attacking transition and let the opposition play forward. Okay, so it's really important that you kind of touch on all of your game model when you're high pressing, and if you have a little bit of success in your high press, then you start to think about the rest of the game model in terms of what the performance problems could be. So last one in terms of high press 1 of the examples. So we've actually got a good practice example with performance problems all together in this one. That you can see here as well. So again, good from the number 9 shaping his run to make it force wide. Good from from our wide forward going into that area. Again, good win back. Okay, so we're in attacking transition now. So effectively we get a shot blocked on goal here. So again, we're just getting the ball back. Still a little bit in attacking transition. And again now here. So again, this is the bit now. Look, not a great first touch. Does well to get his body in. Ends up losing the ball. So actually, brilliant little foul there that we talk about all the time if you end up getting beat. But we've ended up recovering quite well. This is important in defensive transition as well. So we've forced the ball back in a defensive transition, which was brilliant. Now we're looking to get back to that press. So again, our number 9 here is forcing them that way. Obviously managing to get force the pass into midfield, and then we've won it. And again, a good little bit of attacking transition, which ended up with a shot on goal. So again, as I said, we mentioned before, so a good example of a good first press, a good example of obviously moving into attacking transition, getting a shot on goal which was blocked, and then obviously still in that kind of getting into your attacking organisation mode, giving the ball away and then reacting really well to get it back and go again. So, and that can be the process a little bit with pressing as well, because obviously you're trying to create a little bit of chaos in and around the opposition playing out. So high press 2, so an example of a good practice. So again, good from the centre midfield player stepping on. And again, you see here now, just pause it there. So because our players know what's going on, we've obviously got a free player here in terms of the player that's been left in terms of from our midfielder jumping. So, and our players know that. So our centre-backs actually tried to play it to him, but from our centre midfielder getting a block on it, we managed to obviously win the ball back eventually here. And then obviously we're looking, again, good attacking transition, ends up with a good shot on goal. So really good example of like that kind of press and making sure that we don't get those passes into midfield and then we play again. So another good example here as well. All right, just forcing the opposition into a mistake from that attacking transition shot. So performance problem here as well. So as you'll see here now, so a little bit of an issue here in terms of our... In fact, let me just roll that back a little touch. Okay, and you'll just see here now in terms of the press. So obviously, like from the press here, as you can see here, so our wide forward is a little bit eager to go to the fullback. So that's just allowed the pass on the inside of him into the attacking midfielder, and then our midfielder who's marking him's got on the wrong side. So we're still looking to force wide, even if that happens. So even when the pass comes in here now, we're still looking to force wide. So our attacking midfielder our defensive midfielder there is just on the wrong side, which then allows the opposition player to open up and play the opposite side of the pitch with the switch here. Look. So again, it's just little things like that you need to notice, and little bits of detail that you need to talk about getting on the wrong. So even if the initial part doesn't go right, then you're still looking to force wide. So a little bit of a good press and performance problem all rolled into one here. So as you can see here, so we actually allowed the switch. So the first part wasn't great in terms of allowing the ball to go back to the goalkeeper. I'll just roll that back again a touch there, look, so we can have a look at it properly. But again, from this initial kind of press here, okay, then it's just gone back to the goalkeeper, which we don't really want to happen as well, which then compromises our midfielder who's jumped a little bit as well. So, and then from this bit here, I'll just freeze it there now. So because our midfielders come back onto the original player who was marking, it's really important that our number 10 or our central attacking midfield player recovers onto his player as well, but he hasn't, so that's just allowed them to play into that player here on the ball now, as you can see him recovering. He's then allowed to switch it, and then we're in a position where the team's moving across the pitch. So again, like we kind of had to recover from that, but it's good because we've got possession back again, and then obviously we obviously wanted to keep it, and they said that'll be the one pass for attacking transition. Gets a little bit lucky here in terms of this part, but we'll count that as two. And then we'll get a third pass here. So now we're into attacking transition, so we should be able to get into our attacking shape now, which we have. Great pass out wide, good little bit of play, trying to work it around now in terms of like getting in our attacking organisation shape, trying to work it now where we can create opportunities to play into the opposition's penalty area, and a great little pass here that you'll see, which allows us to do that and gets us a shot on goal, and should have been a goal, but you have these moments when it's in and around the penalty area. But again, just a real straightforward practice to work on presses 1 and 2. And like I said, like even when you're doing it in a 6v8 like we were there, you get lots of the different parts of the game anyway. So like I mentioned there, so we had real good moments in the high press. And like in this particular practice, we had limited moments where it was where the high press didn't work. But then obviously you start to look at the other parts of your game model there as well, of where your performance problems are. So we had a couple of performance problems in attacking transition, and then we had a couple of performance problems in attacking organisation as well. So you've always got everything to work on, especially when you play these types of little games. Okay guys, so let's have a look at attacking organisation playing in with a playing through focus for session number 5. And just before we get into this, we didn't actually manage to film this session because we've only got one video camera, and unfortunately it couldn't be in two places at once. So there's no footage of the players actually doing these practices for real, but I'll run through the practices anyway so you get a good idea of kind of what we did and how we did it. In terms of having a focus of playing into the opposition's penalty area and playing through. So a quick reminder of the game model in terms of the 4 phases. So obviously we're having a focus of attacking organisation here and playing in, and I'll get into the detail about that in a little bit of a second. But again, when you do these types of practices, and we're going to do a technical practice, a skill practice, and a game practice, then you get all the moments of the game anyway. And it's important that your players recognise this, and you're always referring back to your game model within these practices, and making sure that their understanding is to of the level of all the phases, and obviously to control the opposition in all the phases, they need to have a good understanding of that as well. So, but again, we're looking at obviously attacking organisation for this particular session. We're looking at playing in, so we're looking at shape, support and supply. And obviously we're looking at the mentality. So obviously there's three methods of playing in, or we use three methods of playing in, which are through, around or over. This particular practice we're going to focus on through, so we'll look to commit opposition into either taking a shot or driving with the ball or deceiving opponents to get into their penalty area as well. Majority of the time when you do these practices, you do, like kind of, as I mentioned before, you'll get all moments anyway. We're actually going to set this practice up where it's literally we're looking at the players at playing through as much as possible. So our focus is to maintain the correct structure around the ball, allowing us to sustain attacks. So that's that compactness that I'll keep talking about in terms of when we talk about even in our defensive organisation, but it still should be there in your attacking organisation, because once you get into the opposition's half of the pitch, you want to stay there and maintain attacks. If your shape isn't quite right and your structure's not quite right behind the ball, then it's really difficult to do that. So making sure that's right as well. And then obviously our objective is to move the ball into the opposition's 18-yard box in a controlled state, and this can be done via a shot on target, a pass, a cross or a dribble. And the target is to get into the opposition's penalty area via playing in 30% of the time that we have the ball in the opposition's half. Okay, so just having a quick look in more detail of that language. So shape, so 5 seconds to get into the correct shape, creating that +2 to control possession of the ball. So even when you're playing into the opposition's penalty area, your back four are really, or your defensive line is still really important in all this, because obviously that's where your overload is. So to get it from one side of the pitch to the other, or even to change the angle of playing through, you'll need that overload, especially if your two centre-backs are playing against one number 9, and you'll see how the practice works in a second as well. So after that support, so supporting angles are beyond, beside and below, so those individual movements we talk about all the time to win the space against the opposition mark or the opposition units. It's really important, like, you talk to your players about movement to support. You know what players are like, especially at grassroots level. Sometimes they're a little bit like standoffish and hide a little bit now and again, and it's really important to encourage them to be constantly on the move or constantly looking for space to exploit, or even create space to exploit, because that's what the game's all about. If everyone stands still, then you've got no chance. So encouraging them to make sure that they're on the support all the time. And then obviously we're talking about the supply, looking for opportunities to play through, around or over the opposition with speed and quality. In this particular session, we're focusing on that playing through. Okay, so let's have a look at the practice 1, which is a technical practice. And there's a couple of parts to this, and we just worked through a couple of different combinations, and just giving the players some ideas of what they could do and the options they have available when they're in this kind of moment of playing in and playing through. So what we did is we set the practice up with obviously 5 players in terms of the white team, and 4 players in terms of the red team. And the red team are obviously defenders, and they're just going to shadow defend. So they're just going to put the pressure on players and just maybe cut off a couple of little ideas that they might have. And we're just going to work through a couple of combinations. So as you can see here, so the first combinations we're just going to work through, really straightforward. So the ball's going to come in from the coach into the white number 6. The white number 6 is just going to play into the attacking midfielder, who's going to play out to the other centre back, which is actually one of our link passes. And again, then we're just going to play into the 9, who's going to link it out to the opposite midfield player as well. And then they're just going to drive through the blue little gate. But again, we'll just work both sides. So into attacking midfielder, into opposite centre back. Centre half steps on with it, plays into 9, who then links it to other midfielders. So just little combinations around or opportunities or ideas to play through. And whenever you do practices like this, whether you use them, and you can call them patterns or whatever, like we like to call them ideas, because you're just giving players ideas of what they can do. Obviously, when the game's live and the red team are defending properly, then it's up to them to try and see that and obviously execute as well. But if you're giving them ideas in their heads to kind of like use, then they've kind of got an idea of what they can do, rather than it just being kind of off the cuff. But we used a 50 by 44 size area for this. We had looking at 9 players really. If you replace the coach with a player, that's obviously 10 players. and we just worked 6 minutes, and we just worked on that combination for a couple of about 2 or 3 minutes each time. Had a little talk about it, a little break about it, and then went again. And then from there we moved into combination number 2. So exactly the same area size, exactly the same number of players, exactly the same timings. In terms of combination number 2, so again, reds are shadow defending against the whites. And again, this time all we were looking to do was really simple. So the white number 6 is going to play into the white number 4 this time, or defensive midfielder number 6, whatever you want to call it. They're going to link it out to the other centre-back, who's the free player. From there, centre-back's just going to play it into attacking midfielder, getting the attacking midfielder from the Reds to jump, so that leaves the defensive midfielder free. Drop it back into him, into the 9, and then same thing again from there into those attacking midfielders again. So as you see here, so a little link pass from the defensive midfield player, getting the 10 to jump, finding that defensive midfielder as the free player then to play forward into the number 9, and then again go from there. So again, 2 really simple combinations, really straightforward in terms of what you're looking for the whites to do, getting the reds to shadow defend so they're actually not committing to actually tackling and stuff. And again, it's just ideas for the white players, just to have an idea of what it looks like to play through the opposition, especially in tight central areas like this. Okay, from there we moved into practice number 2, which was a skill practice. So again, looking at the white team and saying to the whites, talking to the white team about, look, like we're just giving you some ideas of what you possibly could do. Can you do it now live against some players, some proper defenders? And see if you can get a chance to finish on goal. So as you can see here from the setup, so we've got 3 zones. So the first zone we've got where the coach is with the ball. We've got 2 white centre-backs against the number 9. In the second zone we've got a 3v3, so 2 3v3 midfield. So if you're looking at 4-3-3, which we work in a lot of the time, then you're playing against 4-3-3, then you got that 3v3 in the midfield, and then you've got 1 centre-forward against the opposition's 2 centre-backs as well. So all in the first part of the game, the white team are looking to can move the ball, are free to move the ball across the sections, whereas the red team are restricted in their sections, so they can't move out unless they win possession. Once the ball reaches or crosses section number 3, then the game's just live and it's just a normal game. So, and again, we're just looking for the whites' objective is to score in the goal, thinking about those ideas that we've just given them there as well. So, and obviously, like as you can see there, so we just had the white number 6 step into that second section as well to create a little bit of an overload. So, but again, just a real straightforward little skill practice, little game practice. Where you can work on those ideas we had. As soon as it crosses into that final third section, then it just becomes a live game. At any point, if the Reds win the possession, it becomes a live game again, and they can score in any of those 2 goals there. And then obviously each time we'll start again with the coach. Progression, is allowing one of the centre-backs, red centre-backs, to track the centre-forward into that area. To play as well, so obviously be aware of that as well, and you're just getting it as close to the real game as you can in terms of a little skill practice like this. But from there we took it into practice number 3, which was a full game practice, and then we just opened the area out a little bit so that we got an opportunity for the players to do this proper for real. So this time we put in so I'll just go through the details quickly of the area size. So now we're using a full area size in terms of a full half of the pitch. We've got 17 players working in this practice. And we're just going to work 15 minutes, and we're going to work 5 minutes on each part as well. So again, because we have that focus of playing through, you're obviously always encouraging the players to try and do that and try and use those combinations or those ideas we talked about at the start. Naturally, when you go into a game practice like this where you're using the full width of the pitch and you're using obviously like your wide forwards are now in this as well, then you will get around moments as well. That's just natural, but that's what it should be like in the game anyway. So it should be like that all the time as much as possible anyway, where you get as close to the real game, even if you still have that focus of playing through and you're encouraging your players to look for opportunities to play through, you'll naturally get those moments anyway. So, but playing, obviously game practice of playing through, 3 parts to it, set up as areas as you can see with 17 players. White's aim is to execute specific patterns that we've already worked on before attempting to score in the goal at the top of the picture. Red's aim is to execute specific pressing patterns, so thinking about back to those presses that we talked about earlier before attempting to score in either of the goals on the halfway line. And obviously the defensive line is locked onto the offside line as well until the game goes live. So again, like once the game goes live, then they can move off that line as well. So part one is obviously the whites. The white looks to pass to white number 8. So the white 5 looks to pass to white number 8, who passes it to the opposite centre back, and then from there we're looking at the whites to play the ball into the white number 10. Making the game live. So as soon as we kind of get that little combination, and I'll play the video now. As soon as we get that little combination that we talked about in the technical practice, then as soon as we get that combination, the game's live. So here, look. So as soon as it goes into the 8, and then it goes into the opposite centre back, and then as soon as we get that little jump where they can play into the 9 and into the 10, as soon as it's here now, this is live, and everyone, as soon as the game's live, you can move off that defensive line and you can go from there. And obviously he's still encouraging the players to play through, but you'll get around moments as well in this as well. So part 2, the ball is passed from the white number 5 into the white number 4, just on that little combination again. This is part 1 on the opposite side of the pitch again. So obviously it goes live as soon as the combination is complete, and we're into that little part. When you move into part 2, so this time the ball is going to get passed from the white number 5 into the white number 4, that little combination there into the opposite 6. Okay, as soon as you get this bit now, where we can play into the white 4 here, this is the live part now again. As soon as it hits this bit, the live game, normal, kind of go anywhere, and if the Reds win it, they can score in the goal. And as soon as you hit 2, part and 2, so I'll work in the opposite side. So again, as soon as you get to this part here, now it's live again, and you're looking to score in the goal. If the Reds win it, they can score in the goals as well. So again, just working those combinations within a game situation. And then part 3 is just a live game, a straight live game after this first pass. So you've reminded them a little bit of those combinations right at the start in the technical practice and the skill practice, and then obviously move into a live game after this first pass. And again, talk to the players about it's not always going to look like we've set up in the combinations, but those are ideas of what you can have. Those are the ideas for centre backs. Where can you play? Talking to the midfielders about, look, if there's a 2v1 in terms of centre backs against the number 9, where's the spare player? If a player jumps from midfield onto a centre back, where does a spare player come from there? And obviously just encourage them to look at those kind of ideas that we've given them, but also recognise when players are from the opposition jump in the pressing, and recognising those situations of when you can play forward, but obviously continue to encourage them to play through, even though in a game situation like this you'll get around moments and even over moments as well. Okay guys, so let's have a look at our game plan for our up-and-coming game against Utah Avalanche. Just to give you a little bit of background on this particular team and the game that we're going to play. We actually know a lot about this team, so we kind of know that they're going to set up in a 4-3-3, and we've played lots of games against this team over the past couple of years, or especially even before I got here. And this is I'd say with us, these are probably like top 2 teams, or one of the top 2 teams within the state of Utah. Do really well, got really good players, coach is really good, got really good structure and stuff. So it's this is a really good game for us. It's going to be a really tough game for us because this is our first game back since the start of February, and obviously it's to start against a team like this who these boys haven't had a high school season, so they've been together all the way through high school, because it works a little bit differently in their area compared to where we are in Utah. So our boys having a high school season, these guys have been together playing in tournaments, playing games as much as possible, training together all the time. So this was going to be a really, really tough game for us. And like I mentioned before, they've got good players and a good coach and some good structure as well. Last time we played these guys was in November in the Utah Platform League, which is a league for the best teams. They managed to beat us 3-2 in that game in November, which meant that they won the Utah Platform League and we finished second. But it was a brilliant game. It's probably the best game I've seen in terms of 2 teams playing against each other since I've been here in Utah in the last 2 years. Tactically, it was brilliant, and obviously individual players doing what they do as well, in terms of a lot of the individual stuff that we talk about, or we've talked about in this coaching journey as well. So this is going to be a really good game for us, really tough game, but we're always looking at performance over result, and especially with the time off that we've had, and starting with a game like this, it was always going to be tough. But again, the result is really irrelevant. Really, it's all about getting right and getting our stuff right for where we're going to go in the kind of the next few weeks. And the other thing I'll mention in this as well is like that we do have, or we're starting to have now, a little bit of a psychological thing against this particular team as well in terms of the players. It's one of those, and I've had this situation before with the grassroots team. It's one of those where, like, even if we kind of play to the top of our level and we do kind of as much right as we can, and we kind of really get into them, really get on top of them, sometimes, like especially over the last couple of years, they've always found a way to win. And that can start to have a little bit of a psychological effect on the players as well, going into these types of games. But again, all part of the challenge, and all part of the coaching journey, and trying to get your players prepared for that as well. So let's just have a quick reminder of the game model. And obviously, like within the game model, we're looking to control the opposition in all phases of all four phases of the game. And against this particular opposition, we have to get this right, and we have to make sure that we do control all phases of the game. Otherwise, you can obviously end up in a bit of a battle against a good team. So, for us, in terms of a game plan and organising a game plan, our transitions never really change. So we're always looking to react, recover, and regroup in defensive transition, and see if we can win the ball back within 3 passes. If we can't, we're looking to force the opposition backwards and then get into our organised state in defensive organisation. Same with attacking transition. So we're always looking to try and win the ball back within 3 passes, and obviously protect the ball, possess it, and then progress it as well. Depending on the area you win it in an attacking transition, you might progress straight away and go straight to goal. And there's an interesting kind of like coaching thing around that for me at the moment in terms of whether you do possess it or progress it. You see lots of top teams get it and go for it straight away, and that's what they're all about. And then you see other top teams who will get it, keep it, and then get into attacking organisation and control the game from there. So we talk a lot about that particular one where we get control of the ball, and then which allows us to get into our attacking organisation, and then we play from there because we're quite good at the playing out and playing in. So that's kind of what we go for. Obviously, sometimes when you win it in and around pressing and penalty areas of the opposition, then you might progress straight away. But interesting little kind of what you go for in terms of attacking transition. So what I'm going to show you is kind of how we're going to set up in terms of attacking organisation, in terms of some playing out stuff relating to the last game that we had against these guys, and I'm going to show you some defensive organisation stuff in terms of a game plan, how we're going to set up to press against these guys as well. But we'll start with the attacking organisation in terms of playing out, and this is effectively when our goalkeeper or our centre-backs are in possession. So as you can see here from this first part, it doesn't always have to be kind of a standing start and a goal kick. It can be a throwing back to the centre-back, it could be a win possession in attacking transition, play it back to centre-back, and kind of what we're looking to do in terms of playing out and using the centre-backs as much as possible. And this is relating back to the last game we had. So as you can see, normal structure in terms of first line of left-backs, right centre-back, left centre-back with the goalkeeper supporting below. Second line of right-back, left-back and one central midfielder or defensive midfielder. Third line is our 2 attacking midfielders, so we push them really high up the pitch. And then the fourth line is our centre-forward and our 2 wide forwards high and wide, just to pin the back 4 back in this playing out kind of way. So going back to the game we had against these guys in November, so we actually had lots of success about playing to one of our centre-backs. And I know that the opposition red wide forward has moved there, but what they were doing in November, where they were letting our pass go into our fullback, and in the early parts of the game they weren't getting tight to our fullback, so our fullback was able to have an open touch, open his body up, and then we're able to get good movement from our wide forward and our attacking midfielder and a number 9, and we're actually able to get in beyond their opposition defensive line quite comfortably. The first goal we conceded in November was when they were a little bit sharper on that, and we didn't quite have the support from our centre-backs when it went into full-backs. And usually you get that in terms of when you're having a little bit of success at doing something, usually you get that kind of where centre-backs switch off because you're having that success. And so the game plan around this was just playing out, when we're playing around, organising the centre-backs. When they're playing to full-backs, they've got the option of 2 things. They either continue the run or the support below. And the idea of that is, so for the first one here, look, so that this is the continue the run. So they're playing to the full-back, continue the run, take the 9 away, which then allows us to switch the play to the opposite side of the pitch and get a little bit of an overload. If they can't do that, then they'll play into the fullback, which this one will show here. They'll play into the fullback and then they'll just drop below just to support, and we can either link it through our defensive midfielder to our goalkeeper out the other side, or our fullback can step in with it and then link it out to the other side in terms of getting it across the other side of the pitch. So like I said before, if we can't play forward from this situation, which they allowed us to do in a previous game, then we're looking to switch the ball across the pitch. And we're looking for the centre-back to support the full-back in those two particular ways. And sometimes you can just switch it straight away from centre-back to centre-back or through the goalkeeper to work the number 9 and get those opportunities to then go forward. But just the way they press, kind of where the number 9 kind of allows our centre-back to take a step forward, they allow the ball into full-back and then they press. Whether they run it from the start like they weren't last time or whether they are, then we need to be aware of these couple of things as well. So just moving on to the playing through bit as well. So just making sure that we understand about linking through. Still playing around, but linking through our attacking midfield player as well. Because sometimes when you get into a situation from the first couple of structures and the first kind of playing around, where you're talking about like the centre back supporting, then the opposition wide forward might start a little bit closer to our fullback, and kids do this all the time as well, and kids do this at high levels as well, where and sometimes you think kids are a little bit lazy because what they'll do is they won't hold the structure and wait for the pass to go. They'll kind of start edging towards where they think the pass is going to go because they want to be a little bit closer and don't have as far to run. So we're just prepared for that part of it where we're going to link out to the fullback through the central midfielder here as well. So that's if that passes on because the wide forward has moved a little bit closer to our fullback. And then after that, we're just looking at opportunities to play through the opposition as well. So a lot of the times when we play against this particular team, they're quite tight in terms of marking and man marking all over the pitch. But it's always, so creating space to obviously play into our number 9 or straight into our number 9, which is one of those passes that we talked about in the previous session in terms of playing through and playing in. It's the same when it's here because the centre back's on the ball again. But again, like just talking to the number 9 about if it comes into your feet, here's your options. Can you get hold of it? Can you try and outplay 1v1, or can you link it to our number 10? Or our attacking midfield player, or our wide forward. And again, this can happen on the other side of the pitch as well, if our other centre-back is in possession as well. But those are the kind of things we're going to go after in terms of attacking organisation, just because of understanding how they play and how they press, and a couple of performance problems we ran into last time we played them in a game. Okay, so let's have a look at the defensive organisation and high press kind of structure that we're going to go after in terms of the game plan to play against Utah Avalanche. So again, like we wanted to set up like this just because of the previous game that we played against them and the success we had, with a slight little tweak as well, because obviously you want to keep teams guessing as much as possible. So against this particular team, they've got a couple of really good centre-backs, one in particular with the left foot, who's a really talented player. So we kind of know that we can't press alone with our number 9, because like he'll either outplay in 1v1 or he'll recognise it and switch it straight away, which kind of puts you in a little bit of trouble against this particular team. So last time we played against this team, we did high press number 4, which I've already spoke about, but we full pressed from a wide area. So we had our fullback jumping, we had our wide forward high up the pitch with our number 9, and we had our fullback jumping onto their fullback, which we had loads of success with, because the goalkeeper kept playing a longer pass into their fullback, which was a bit of a looped pass. It wasn't a driven one, so it allowed us to get there and get on that first touch and be aggressive. And it also allowed us to obviously get pressure up against the centre-backs as well. So we decided that we're going to go with a high press 4 again, but this time we're going to do a full press from central areas just to change it a little bit, because again, coaching's good. They'll recognise what happened in the last game, and they'll probably have a plan for it. So just to throw something else at them as well just keeps them guessing a little bit at the same time. So structure is first line will be the 2 centre forward and 2 wide forwards, high but compact. Obviously having that vertical horizontal compactness, looking to force the ball into wide areas. Second line would be a attacking midfield player, because they set up in a similar structure to us, where they'll have their number 6 or the defensive midfielder a little bit lower, and 2 high attacking midfield midfield players. So our third line would be our 2 centre midfield players, and then our fourth line would be our defensive line. So 2 centre backs and 2 full backs, narrow and compact again. Again, if you can look at that picture there, just within the width of the penalty area, and obviously from front to back, from defensive line to forward line, probably about 40 metres. So real compact shape to start with, and that's important as well, because when you're playing against good teams, they'll recognise straight away when that's not quite right, and they'll be able to play through you as well. So what we were going to go after was that central pass, that high press 4, so that full press from central areas. So as you can see there, we weren't really concerned with which centre back got the ball. We probably on the day we try and avoid the goalkeeper playing it to the left centre back, so we might get the 9 to sit up on the other side, but that's something we can figure out on the day. But obviously we wanted our centre forward and our centre midfield player high and aggressive press, and keeping those wide forwards compact again. So as you can see there again, so our wide forward, our centre midfield player has gone and pressed, is forcing wide again into that full back, ideally if he can win the ball there and obviously keep possession, brilliant. If not and it goes to full back, then we're making sure that we are onto that pass and we are full sprinting, full aggression onto that second one when it goes in there, and we get across the pitch and we maintain our compactness. And that's ultimately a lot of the times where you'll win possession, especially when you're looking at players at this level where body shape's not quite right, it's not as open, and the pass isn't quite detailed enough where they can play forward straight away. Usually they end up with a little bit of a closed body, and obviously and then you're into an opportunity where you can create that net. And as you can see there, you're just creating that 5v5 on that one side of the pitch. Obviously from this position now, really important that you keep your attacking get your attacking transition right and your attacking organisation right to really push the threat of that press, because a lot of the times you can press and you can force a mistake or you can maybe win it, but if you give it away straight away, then against good teams, it doesn't really make much of a difference. You really make a difference when you get your press right and you get the rest of the game model right as well in terms of attacking transition and attacking organisation as well. So obviously there's going to be moments where our press is going to get beaten, as you can see even when we were in the earlier in this particular journey, we talked about the sessions and we had moments where the press did get broken. Inevitably, especially when you're playing against a good team, that is going to happen. So making sure that we've got vertical, horizontal compactness, and this particular team have got a really good number 9 as well, and he's capable of dropping deep and getting it, and obviously the ball coming into him and in getting hold of it as well. So it's really important that we're on that as well in terms of our centre backs and being aggressive and still pressing even in these lower areas of the pitch, and keeping that vertical, horizontal compactness, still looking to force the opposition wide. So lots of challenges in a game like this against a good team, but lots of good challenges, and lots of things that we can go after with the players, and making sure that it's obviously we're looking at our performance and making sure that our performance is around our levels. But that's kind of what we're going after in terms of a game plan against this particular team in attacking organisation and defensive organisation. And as I mentioned before, the transitions always stay the same. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're not a subscriber and this is the first time you've watched one of our videos, please make sure you subscribe. If you like the video, then please hit the like button. And if you've got any comments or suggestions about anything that we've talked about, we'd love to hear from you. We reply to all the comments. So if you want to engage in terms of anything to do with the coaching and what we've talked about in this, or even your own teams, then please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. What's coming up in week number 7 is we're going to do a game review of that game against Utah Avalanche, which I've just gone through the game plan. So we'll talk about that, and we'll really get into, obviously we won't get into the full game, but we'll get into the good moments of the game, we'll get into the performance problems of the game, and we'll show you how we use metrics to kind of break down the game around our game model, around the targets, and then obviously that kind of sets you up for your working week and what you need to work on within your training sessions, and how it shapes your training sessions as well. So we'll look at session number 4 as well, which was an attacking organisation session around playing out and playing around the opposition, and then we'll show you the game plan for our second game, which was against Park City Red Wolves, which was a very different challenge to Utah Avalanche, and a little bit of a different shape challenge, or should be a different shape challenge as well, to what we played against Utah Avalanche as well. So we'll look forward to that. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon.